Private control was tied to the issue of money. Most of these institutions arose from private grants or endowments. Someone would simply give money, or a community would give money to establish a school, or someone would pass away and there would be money in the will. In order to keep going, they charged tuition. In charging tuition, they were selective, not on the basis of how smart you were or how smart your parents were, how rich your parents were or you were. They were selective on the basis of whose check won't bounce, although I suspect checks weren't invented yet. Whose bag of gold is real? Most of them, and we hate to hear this, led shaky existences due to the complete allegiance to tuition and gifts. They were very dependent upon having students. And because of that, they kind of let a lot of people in through the back door, and they developed some schemes in order to get money and to keep running. Some of those schemes, work-study was conceived of and first instituted in the academies. I don't think anyone has ever done a dissertation on the age of the Society for Promoting Manual Labor in Literary Institutions, but that might be a good one. You could perhaps check the literature and see if there's any work been done on that. Elaborate systems of fines to raise money. Lotteries were not unheard of. We think that's a modern idea. No, goes way back. Let's have a lottery. We'll raffle something off, and the rest of the proceeds will go to fund Uncle Joe's Academy. Sale of scholarships. You want little Ralph to come here? Tell you what, you give us X amount of money, and little Ralph's got a scholarship. Not only that, but if you give us enough money, little Ralph can pass that scholarship on to his heirs. And then the truly desperate ones. Would you believe the admission of women? And this is what happened. Many institutions were, I really don't want to come down on this too hard, but if you are desperate enough, you will try anything, and one of the things that was finally resorted to was women. I mean, if they've got the money, if you've got the money, honey, we've got the school. More schemes tried. Using public facilities for classes. Sounds like the old medieval university now. Using poor or out-of-date equipment. Hiring poorly or marginally qualified teachers. Now we're getting to today. Offering anything and everything if a class could be made. You want a class in Polish? Tell you what, you get us 16 students, we'll get you a teacher. You want basket weaving? You want underwater basket weaving? We can do that. Maybe take 18 students to do it. Kind of like many of our own continuing education community college programs. I can remember when I first started here back in 1972, we needed like 14 students to offer a class over in Mesquite. We needed 16 students to order a class in, offer a class in Richardson. What you were trying to do was pay for the instructor's mileage. So, like many of our continuing ed programs of today. Administration, how were the academies tended to? They had a board of trustees which was made up of persons much like those who serve on modern boards of education. Now, the Latin grammar schools usually had a board of trustees too, and today we have boards of education. So that's had a long tradition in American education, hasn't it? Ruled by an outside board. Except these trustees were appointed by the owners. They weren't elected by the community. That's a difference. There was a principal or headmaster. The folks in that administration maintained that the job of principal can be traced to the academies. This was a delegate of the board who took care of the daily responsibilities with respect to facilities and operation. 9 times out of 10, they also taught a course or two. Curriculum, divided into 2 sides, S-I-D-E. On the classical side, I mean, these would be tracks today. On the classical side, you could study Latin grammar school offerings like Latin, Greek, mathematics. On the English side, you studied practical, utilitarian, ornamental subjects like English language, history, science, which was in those days called natural philosophy, and we could get into that underwater basket weaving and other courses as well. And so you might talk to your fellow students and say, which side are you studying on, the classical side or the English side? Back to Theodore Sizer, says optimistic and laissez-faire in the extreme are the only ways one can describe the curricula of the academies. Anything and everything could be put into a course, most often a 6-week course. States, towns, and trustees rarely questioned, and with few exceptions, fully supported the Academy's wildly expansive programs. And one of the things that the academies are going to be criticized for on down the road was that they were offering too many courses, and that those they were offering were, and the quote was, feeble and scrappy. Before the Committee of 10 was formed, and we'll get to them way on down the road, they sent out a questionnaire to the high schools and to the academies in existence, and this was discovered. One of the things that arose as a result of the survey was that there were too many courses and that they were kind of flimsy, let's say. Who were the students? Well, there were few class distinctions aside from ability to pay. If you had enough money, you could get in. You don't know how to read? That's okay. Just give us your money anyway. We'll get you in the class. Little in the way of entrance requirements. Males and ultimately females were admitted. So these are open to anybody who's got the tuition. Who were the teachers? They were generally less qualified than those of the Latin grammar schools. Remember, those Latin grammar school folks had probably studied in a real university or in a divinity school of some kind and were fairly knowledgeable in Latin and Greek for a minimum. Most of these people were part-timers. They did not teach for a living. They did this, let's say, as a hedge against starvation. There were many, many more people who just taught 1 or 2 courses than people who made a day of it. Also, it was a temporary position for most. Well, I'll teach a couple of courses this semester, and then I'll move on to the next town and see if there's something better over there when that day comes. Most of the teachers were ill prepared to handle the wide variety of courses. Remember that little everything and anything and everything that Sizer said that they were expected to teach. Public school teachers can be asked to teach one subject outside of their certification area, but in these days I suspect these people weren't certified in anything and they were being asked to be the teacher.